Years ago when American military leadership made a catastrophic error that got 13 innocent Americans killed in Afghanistan and had about $80 billion of military equipment turned over to one of the worst terrorist organizations in the world. And for years, the American media ran cover for a Biden administration that refused to fire any generals or even launch an internal investigation that was meaningful and substantive about what happened. And now the same American media.
Hi, thank you for tuning into my channel. This is the Gang, and today we are going to look at mainstream media biases. Remember on October 7th, 2023, when 13 Americans were killed in the Middle East, and mainstream media was pretty silent on this. I mean, they went crickets, okay? And now with the scandal regarding Signal, mainstream media is out there screaming, asking for people to resign. And JD Vance had a lot to say about this incident. Let's watch.
Update on the internal investigation into that Signal chat leak. Has that investigation concluded, and what are the findings?
I think we'll get an update soon. Look, we take it very seriously. We all accept that a journalist should not have been invited into the chat, and members of the administration, including my dear friend Mike, have taken responsibility for it. But I find the American media's obsession with this issue very, very interesting, because I happen to remember about 4 years ago when American military leadership made a catastrophic error that got 13 innocent Americans killed in Afghanistan and had about $80 billion of military equipment turned over to one of the worst terrorist organizations in the world. And for years, the American media ran cover for a Biden administration that refused to fire any generals or even launch an internal investigation that was meaningful and substantive about what happened. And now the same American media that covered for the Biden administration after the untimely death and the unnecessary death of 13 brave Americans is really, really interested in forcing the President of the United States to fire someone because of a Signal chat. That is not honest behavior from the American media. And if you think you're going to force the President of the United States to fire anybody, you've got another thing coming. President Trump has said it on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, and I'm the Vice President saying it here on Friday. We are standing behind our entire national security team.
You know, sometimes listening to people on mainstream media, it feels like they just want this administration to fail. They're just looking for that gotcha moment, okay? Oh, let's see what President Trump is doing. Let's see why he's failing. Let's ask these questions. Let's get him with this question. They never during the Biden administration they were all crickets. To a president that couldn't express himself, to another one that couldn't talk, who was reading a teleprompter the entire time. They never ever they were all crickets about the tone of President Biden or the tone of Kamala Harris. And now they're worried about President Trump's tone. Really? It's just so weird how the mainstream media hosts frame their questions. It just feels like they just want this administration to fail. It's why are they rooting for the United States to fail? It's a win-win for everybody if this administration succeeds. I don't understand that. They're not even angry that foreign countries are taking advantage of the United States of America. The leaders have allowed it, and now you have a president that is trying to save the country, and these people are mad. I don't understand that. Let's listen to Eric Schmidt, I'll put it that way, destroy the smog on one of ABC News hosts live on her own show. It's ridiculous. The way these people frame questions is so misleading, especially to those that are still asleep. It's just so misleading. Because the way they frame the questions, they're trying to get that gotcha moment. Let's listen.
Trump telling farmers via Truth Social to have fun with these tariffs. I mean, Senator, that's a bit flip. Is that really the right tone for the moment? I mean, you deal with these farmers in your state on a regular basis. You hear from your constituents. Is this the right tone?
What tone is that exactly? You mean the one where he's telling the truth about what's going on? What tone is that? What does it matter what tone he's using, as long as what he's saying is true?
Well, listen, I can tell you because I'm from Missouri. Missouri's bright red, and rural America voted for President Trump because he's standing up for them. You can't even sell a car in Europe effectively, right? You've got a lot of these barriers that have been put in place by countries who are our friends, but take full advantage. They want access to our markets, but it's an unfair imbalance when you try to penetrate their markets with our goods. So President Trump is entering into a game here of a negotiation to try to bring this thing down, to bring costs down, and also to be treated fairly. So the farmers that I represent in Missouri are tired, like I said, like most Americans, of getting ripped off by so many countries around the world.
So now that you've given me that great answer, you've convinced me. Let me ask you another question. Let me get another gotcha moment. Let me catch you in another question.
Let's talk about China. China's gets a tremendous amount of soybeans from us. So farmers need to be able to sell to foreign countries.
Yeah, I don't think you're probably arguing that we have access to Chinese markets, are you? In a real way? That's not your argument, because they're dumping products across, they're dumping steel, they're bypassing a lot of the tariffs that are put in place by going through Mexico. We finally have a president who's serious about this. And like I said, when President Trump did this the first time, we saw revenue increase, and our reliance on Chinese goods on imports went from about 22% to 13%. That's a good thing for us as we try to bring these supply chains home. I would also point out, as he's announcing these tariffs, we've seen record investment from Apple that wants to get out of China more meaningfully be in the United States. Mercedes-Benz now wants to produce here and not Mexico. And Honda, of course, yesterday, you didn't have that in your report. Honda announced that they're going to start building the hybrids in the United States of America as opposed to Mexico. So if you want to just sort of give one side of this, I don't know, maybe that's good for ratings. But if you had a more balanced approach, I think you would give President Trump a little bit of credit because it worked the first time.
Exactly. If you just want to get one side of this, maybe that's good for ratings. Maybe that's why these journalists are looking for that gotcha moment, because it helps them get ratings, even though they know that what they're saying is all lies and doesn't help the American people. But they'll still go ahead and tell you things that are totally wrong information. Yeah, now that I've played a misinformation game, let me now switch a little bit to your emotions. Let's take the emotional route and see how you answer the question. Let's get closer to your emotions so we can get that gotcha moment.
Dear to your heart, dear to my heart, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon has now been tasked to eliminate the Department of Education. Special ed is about to get slashed. Listen to what one Texas father of two boys with special needs told me recently.
I believe that with the loss of funding, it would be very devastating to my boys, to all their parents that are dealing with the need for the resources for special education. I have a son who's an aspiring doctor, so Title I, and amongst other programs, help him receive those Pell Grants and things like that so that he can move forward with his academic career and hopefully become a
thriving citizen. It was the end of that soundbite. Senator, I know you have a son with special needs. I grew up in a family with siblings that have special needs, parents that were teachers in this community. What do you say to parents who are really scared about their kids' futures?
Yeah, I guess my message would be don't believe media reports like you're promoting
Exactly.
right now. It's not true. There's the IDEA, which is a federal statute that guarantees those services. And so whether that money then is going to flow directly to the states or in different agencies, the law is the law. There are protections. That funding is going to continue to flow. But what you won't see is the Department of Education denying grant applications to school districts across this country because they haven't implemented divisive DEI trainings and divide the room by race. And so the Department of Education is essentially a conduit for federal funds that are going to continue to flow to states and important programs benefiting those with special needs. So I think a little bit of truthfulness here as opposed to scaring the daylights out of folks who are in vulnerable positions would be appropriate.
Exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, mainstream media is always trying to push some kind of narrative, and whenever, because they try to fearmonger people, because they know when people are afraid, they will believe whatever they're told, okay? Especially those people that just watch headlines. they will believe whatever they're told because they don't know the entire story. She's talking about cutting funding for special needs children. That's not happening. All those programs are being transferred to health and human services. Nothing is being cut. Even the kids programs, lunch and kids programs, all that is being transferred to the Department of Agriculture. We saw President Trump sign that executive order and explain what it was. And scholarships and Pell programs, they're talking about Pell Grants being cut. That is not even true. This is being transferred to the Department of Treasury. There's no way they're going to cut those grants, okay? They are only cutting funding for those programs that are waste, have experienced waste, abuse, and fraud. I can't stress enough of that. And they keep saying, oh, we need more money, more funding. I mean, the Department of Education, the budget has grown from 14 billion to 80 billion, 80 billion. And yet, student outcomes have declined nationally. Only 32% of students are proficient in reading and 31% in math. The system is failing our children, and something needs to be done. And President Trump is doing that. What have they been doing all this while? Hmm? For some, I just feel like they want this president to fail. They don't understand if he succeeds, it's a win-win for us, our children, and our children's children. I don't understand that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for you today. If you find value in my videos, you can comment below, like, subscribe, and most importantly, keep reading, keep listening, and make sure you stay with an open mind. Enjoy the rest of your day. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.